Today we gather to mark the 35th anniversary of the deaths of IRA volunteers Mairéad Farrell, Sean Savage and Dan McCann, murdered in Gibraltar as part of Thatcher's shoot to kill policy. Volunteer Kevin McCracken shot and killed on active service by British Army in Turf Lodge. John Murray, Thomas McArlean and volunteer Keevy McBrady killed in defence of their people when loyalist Michael Stone attacked mourners as our community buried our patriot dead. We stand today to remember and to rededicate ourselves to achieving the Republic they fought and died for. I want to extend the warmest of welcomes and express solidarity on behalf of everyone gathered here today to the families of Mairéad, Dan, Sean, Kevin, Keevy, Thomas and John. As a young woman, I am inspired by our comrades, and as a new generation of young Irish Republicans step forward, we take up the baton, and we do so in the full knowledge that we are indeed standing on the shoulders of giants, grateful for the sacrifices of those who came before us. Our main speaker today is Mairéad Farrell, TD, the namesake and niece of IRA volunteer Mairéad Farrell. Mairéad is a trailblazing representative for Sinn Féin in Galway West, and I'm delighted to welcome her to West Belfast today.
As an Irish Republican, it is an incredible honour to speak at the graveside of our patriot dead at the Republican plot here in Milltown Cemetery. And I do so for the first time as a Sinn Féin TD, and I am very conscious that if it weren't for the influence of many of you here today, as well as the impact that the events we commemorate today had on my family, that I would not be with you in this capacity. And in fact, I can say that without a shadow of a doubt that the influence of our friend Bobby's story had on me, with his encouragement, his incredible political mind and his amazing ability to instill self-confidence in everyone he spoke to, is what has me here today. Of course, as we all know, Bobby would have said, "Aye, sure, you could have done it without me." But every single time that I am in Belfast, I think of Bobby. And every single time that I stand up in Dáil Éireann, I do so as a proud Galwegian, proud of the community that I come from and the people that I represent. But equally, I do so with the knowledge of where my family comes from. And I cannot wait until the day that our Shanador Niall O'Donoghue is joined by other Belfast Sinn Féin representatives when we achieve a united Ireland. So as Mairéad Farrell TD, I am incredibly proud to be here at the graveside of Óglaich Mairéad Farrell. Agus a cháirde támuid bailithe le chéile seo inniu chun Commemoration Óglaí Dan McCann, Sean Savage, Keevy McBrady, Kevin McCracken agus Mairéad Farrell, Chomá le Birch Iarchróige, John Murray agus Thomas McArlean, and we gather with their families and their friends, and our families brought together and linked together forever as a result of those terrible 10 days in March 1988. And I just want to thank Belfast Sinn Féin and the wider Republican family here in Belfast, as well as the felons, for hosting a lovely event this morning that brought our families together again. But if we look at the history of Ireland, there is no question but that Gibraltar was a seismic event which had a huge impact on the history of our country. And that impact was not just felt by the people of Belfast. The killing of Mairéad, Dan and Sean was felt by so many of the people of Ireland. And that solidarity from among the wider population and the wider community was clear from the huge outpouring of grief across the island, which saw thousands of people who gathered in the streets along the route as the three bodies of our comrades were brought from Dublin to Belfast. And I'm all too well aware of the very long journey home from Gibraltar, which added to the pain and trauma of the people who loved them. Dan Mairéad and Sean were widely respected by their friends, their families and their community, as well as much further afield. Sean, of course, was only in his early 20s, but was already well respected. The war had come to his door at a very young age. Dan and Mairéad, who were already in their 30s, were already veterans of the struggle. But Mairéad had spent most of her 20s in jail, and although I never had the opportunity to meet my aunt, seeing the bond that the women who were in Armagh with her share to this day gives me a sense of the person that she was, and hearing of the funny times that they shared brings me great joy. But of course there were very difficult times too, and I think of the time she spent on hunger strike with Mary Doyle and Mairéad Nugent. And in a letter on the 18th of December 1980, while she was on hunger strike, she wrote, "I wasn't in too good a form yesterday morning. Well, it's not that I was in bad form, it's just in the mornings now I always feel kind of sick." The period of grief and trauma after the killings in Gibraltar is something which for me, who's not alive at the time, is unimaginable. But the attempt to demonise the community of West Belfast, of course, failed. And of course it could never have succeeded. It would never succeed as a result of the strength, character and resilience of the people of Belfast, which I know to be true to this day. But of course only a few short days later, as the people of Belfast waited on the return of Sean, Dan and Mairéad, Óglach Kevin McCracken, again in his early 30s, a former blanket man from Turf Lodge, was shot dead by the British Army. Another incredible loss. And at that time we also had the tragic loss of the two Brendans, Brendan Moley and Brendan Burns in South Armagh, and the attack on their funeral had an immense impact on their families and their community. Bloody Sunday, the Ballymurphy massacre and the use of sectarian killer gangs were the old British tactic of collective punishment. And let us be clear, the attack on the funeral of our loved ones on the 16th of March 1988 was not a random sectarian killer's act. This was British collusion in action. And as many of you will recall, up until then funerals were swamped by the massed forces of the RUC and British Army. But on that 16th of March there was not an RUC man or a British soldier in sight. And we now know too where those weapons used against the mourners came from. Be in no doubt, these continue to be the common tools of empire. The pseudo-gangs and collective punishment are part of the arsenal of the oppressors. And that is why the truth must come out, and that is why the British government's legacy bill must be stopped. And it is at this point that I wish to offer my profound sympathy to the families of the three courageous young men, Thomas McErlane, Óglach Queeveen McBrody and John Murray, who lost their lives defending our community. The loved ones of those brave hearts have suffered as much, if not more, than the families of the Gibraltar Three. The sacrifice that Queeveen Thomas and John made for their community must never be forgotten. I am mindful of the fact that at Queeveen's funeral 2 British soldiers were killed, and for us there is no hierarchy of victims, and we are mindful that their families are also grieving. That month in 1988 is a terrible time that must never be repeated, and because of Republican leaders and our community who stood in the graveyard, those days will never happen again, and our country is in a very different place. But on a hopeful note, we are part of a party that is growing, a party that is offering hope and the prospect of a better future for all the people of Ireland, because the times are changing and it is a time of great opportunities that were not open to those who came before us. A new and a united Ireland is possible, and it is our responsibility, every single one of us who are United Irelanders, to realise the opportunity that is before us. We must not be complacent, we must seize the opportunity before us, and together we can reimagine the kind of society that we want to live in. We now have 2 incredible women leading us from the front who want to deliver this change and realise the opportunity for all the people of Ireland. And we in Sinn Féin won't rest until we all have the Ireland that we deserve. An Ireland that is focused on our opportunities, our well-being, our future and our hope. And until we can all feel that hope, until we all know that there is space for every single one of us here with opportunities to build a life and look to the future. And I am proud to be part of a party that is boldly reaching for that future, because together we can do all of this. But in this week, the week of International Women's Day, as I remember the women in my family, I also wish to pay tribute to two unconquerable women. Rita O'Hare, who we buried this week, was a force to be reckoned with. And in her last conversation, she actually told me that she, like Mairéad, went to Rathmore Grammar School. And I think we can all say, and Cliona did as well, that that school has a lot to answer for. But Carmen Proetta was a woman who became part of all our lives when she witnessed the British government's shoot-to-kill policy in its most blatant form. Carmen, despite having no links to Ireland, and no matter the consequence, spoke truth to power, and for that we will always be grateful. Gurmila Mahagut a Carmen. Carmen and Rita showed strength of character and of mind, and we continue to be inspired by them, and we must follow their lead, because as we continue to build towards Irish unity, we must remember that there will be challenges ahead, but that working together we can and will achieve a united Ireland that will deliver for all. So on conclusion, to quote my Auntie Mairéad for the first time, your mind's your strongest weapon, and that's how we always counteract whatever they do, because they can't control our minds. They can't get inside them, and that is their failure. Beir Mishbua.